Alright, so picture this, Huck and Jim are just trying to vibe and stay out of trouble, but, like every classic anime protagonist, trouble finds them anyway. It's chapter 29 of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and things are heating up like a final boss fight. Remember those scammer fools, the Duke and the King? Yeah, they're still out here trying to finesse their way through life, and now it's all going sideways. Here's the sitch, the Duke and the King are deep in their latest scheme, pretending to be long-lost brothers of some dead dude named Peter Wilkes so they can snatch his inheritance. But hold up, plot twist. Two other dudes roll into town claiming they are the real Wilkes brothers. It's like an Among Us meeting where everyone's yelling Seuss, and no one knows who to trust. The whole town gathers to figure out who's lying, and it's more chaotic than a middle school cafeteria food fight. The first step in this small-town drama? A handwriting test. The town lawyers all, okay, fake brothers, write something so we can compare it to a note Peter wrote. The Duke and the King are sweating bullets, but somehow they keep their poker faces. Just when you think the game's over for these clowns, the real brothers botch the test because one of them broke his arm. Classic plot armor for the scammers, right? But wait, there's more. Somebody suggests digging up Peter Wilkes' body to check if he's got this specific tattoo that only his real brothers would know about. Now, if this isn't peak grave-robbing horror movie energy, I don't know what is. The Duke and the King are panicking but still go along with it because they don't want to blow their cover. Meanwhile, Huck's just chilling on the sidelines, mentally screaming, "This is fine," while everything burns down around him. So, the crowd marches to the cemetery, shovels and torches in hand. It's giving major Minecraft expedition vibes, but instead of diamonds, they're digging for the truth. They crack open Peter's coffin, and bam! Plot armor vanishes. The loot drops a bombshell, no tattoo. Turns out the King and the Duke had been bluffing about the details, and now the whole town's side-eyeing them like NPCs realizing they've been scammed by a low-level grifter. At this point, Huck pulls the ultimate rogue move. While everyone's distracted with the grave-digging drama, he ninja sneaks back to the raft where Jim's waiting. Huck's thinking, time to yeet out of this dumpster fire. But just when they're about to dip, guess who shows up? Yep, the Duke and the King. These dudes are like Team Rocket, always showing up to ruin your day, even when you think you've ditched them for good. Fast forward to chapter 30, and the vibe's tense on the raft. The Duke and the King are fuming because their con crashed and burned, and they know somebody sold them out. The King starts grilling Huck like he's Gordon Ramsay trying to figure out who overcooked the risotto. Huck's heart's pounding, but he pulls out that improv skill tree he's been maxing out since chapter 1. He spins this wild story about how he didn't know anything about the gold stash being found and totally dodges suspicion. Seriously, the guy could win an Oscar for his acting skills. Meanwhile, the King and the Duke start beefing with each other. They're blaming each other for the whole mess, and it's like watching two noobs in a co-op game yell over who botched the mission. At one point, the King legit chokes the Duke out, like, full WWE SmackDown style, but then they both calm down and get drunk instead. Classic toxic team dynamics, am I right? Huck's just sitting there, trying to stay invisible. You can almost hear him thinking, can y'all just throw hands and fall off this raft already? But nope, these two grifters are like barnacles, impossible to shake off. Huck doesn't trust them as far as he can throw them, which, let's be real, isn't far, but he's biding his time, scheming on how to save Jim and get out of this mess. By the end of chapter 30, the King and the Duke are passed out drunk, and Huck's left to stew in his thoughts. It's one of those moments where you're stuck in a party with people you hate, and all you can do is plan your escape. Huck's loyalty to Jim and his knack for thinking on his feet are the only things keeping him going. It's clear he's leveling up emotionally, even if he's still trapped in the middle of this chaotic RPG. So, there you have it. These chapters are a total roller coaster, packed with betrayal, bad decisions, and Huck's clever moves. It's messy, dramatic, and low-key hilarious in the way only Mark Twain can pull off. You can't help but root for Huck and Jim, hoping they'll finally get a break and leave these con artists in their dust. Fingers crossed, right? Alright, let's dive into chapters 31 and 32 of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Imagine Huck is the main character in a chaotic survival game, and this stage has him juggling betrayal, guilt, and a last-ditch rescue mission because, of course, the stakes just keep getting higher. So, the scene kicks off with Huck and the scam duo, King and Duke, cruising down the river again after their latest disaster. These guys are about as trustworthy as a pop-up ad promising free V-Bucks. They're broke, desperate, and totally losing it. Huck, meanwhile, is watching their meltdown from the sidelines, thinking, wow, this is some next-level clownery. But before he can plot his exit strategy, the King makes a sneaky move and sells Jim, the same Jim who's been Huck's ride or die this entire time, to some random farmer for $40. Yeah, $40. You'd think Jim was a used bike on Craigslist or something. When Huck finds out, he's furious, like Deku's friends are in danger level mad. But also, he's hit with a major moral dilemma. He's grown up being told that helping an enslaved person escape is, like, the ultimate sin. Society's brainwashing is screaming at him, you're gonna burn in hell for this. But at the same time, Huck's heart is like, dude, Jim's your bestie. He saved your life, helped you survive, and trusted you. Are you really gonna let him down? Cue Huck's emo moment. He sits down with a pen and paper, trying to write a letter to Miss Watson, Jim's enslaver, to tell her where he is. He's all, okay, maybe if I do this, I won't go to hell. But as he's writing, memories of Jim flood his mind, like the time Jim called him his only friend or when they teamed up to face all the wild stuff on the river. And suddenly, Huck has this epic anime protagonist realization. He rips up the letter, declaring, "Alright, then, I'll go to hell." Boom. Character development unlocked. Huck decides he's going to rescue Jim, no matter what. With his hero mode activated, Huck rolls up to the farm where Jim's being held, ready to get him out of there. He's armed with zero plans, but hey, vibes and determination count for something, right? Turns out, the farmer is this guy named Silas Phelps, and when Huck shows up, they mistake him for Tom Sawyer, because apparently everyone in this universe has terrible facial recognition. Huck's like, "Wait, what?" but then quickly goes, "Yeah, sure, I'm Tom, because why not?" Now, this is where it gets wild. Silas and his wife, Sally, are hyped to see Tom because they were expecting him to visit. Sally's got this whole suburban mom hosting a barbecue energy, showering Huck with food and affection, which is kind of hilarious considering he's literally here to bust a guy out of their shed. Huck plays along, thinking, "I cannot believe this is working." But in classic Huck fashion, he's also stressing about how long he can keep up the act. And let's talk about Huck's stealth skills here. He's low-key terrible at it, but somehow keeps dodging disaster. It's like playing a game of Among Us where Huck is the imposter and everyone else is too trusting to vote him out. Every time Sally or Silas asks a question about his journey, Huck fumbles his answers, but they just shrug it off like, "Oh, Tom, you silly goofball." Meanwhile, Huck sneaks around trying to gather intel on Jim's location. He finds out Jim's locked up in a shed on the property, which feels like the 19th century version of a dungeon level in an RPG. Huck's already cooking up escape plans when, plot twist, the real Tom Sawyer shows up. Yeah, the actual Tom. He pulls up like a DLC character nobody asked for, but everyone gets anyway. Huck's first reaction? Panic. But then he quickly fills Tom in on what's happening. Now, if you know Tom Sawyer, you know this guy lives for drama. Instead of being like, "Let's bust Jim out right now," he's like, "Oh, this sounds like an adventure. Let's make it extra complicated for no reason." Huck's just standing there like, "Dude, are you serious?" But Tom is already plotting some overly dramatic scheme, because that's just how his brain works. By the end of chapter 32, the stage is set for Huck and Tom's rescue mission. Huck's over here trying to keep everything simple and efficient, while Tom's cooking up plans that are more convoluted than a One Piece arc. And poor Jim? He's just chilling in the shed, probably wondering how long it'll take these two knuckleheads to save him. So, yeah, that's the vibe. Huck's trying to do the right thing, Tom's being extra as usual, and the Phelpses are clueless NPCs in this chaotic side quest. Get ready, because the next chapters are about to be peak chaos. Crew takes on a stealth mission. Alright, buckle up, because chapters 33 and 34 of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn are straight up wild, like when you think you're about to have a chill game session, and suddenly, a surprise boss fight drops out of nowhere. Huck's still out here trying to keep it together, save Jim, and dodge all the drama, but Mark Twain isn't about to make it easy for him. So, Huck's heading back to the Phelps farm after leaving those clownish con artists, the Duke and the King. Spoiler alert, those two ding-dongs are still wreaking havoc. As Huck rolls into town, he spots a massive crowd gathered for what looks like an old-school mob event. Turns out, the townspeople have finally clocked the Duke and the King as the fraudsters they are. This isn't just a light roasting, these dudes are getting full-on tarred and feathered. Huck, ever the soft-hearted kid, feels a little bad for them. He's like, yeah, they're trash, but do they deserve to get turned into human chicken nuggets? Still, he knows better than to stick around, so he dips out quick before anyone starts asking questions. Now Huck's got a new mission, saving Jim. He gets to the Phelps farm, where, surprise, he finds out the Phelps family is related to none other than Tom Sawyer. Yes, that Tom Sawyer. If Huck's life was a Netflix series, this would be the guest star returns episode. Huck's thinking, perfect, I'll just roll up in here and pull off some quiet, 200 IQ rescue mission. But then Tom shows up, and you already know this is about to get chaotic. Tom sees Huck, doesn't even flinch, and immediately dives into the adventure like the absolute drama queen he is. Tom's first reaction to Huck's plan is classic Tom, a quick and simple rescue? Nah, bro, that's boring. We gotta make it extra. Huck's like, bruh, why are you like this? But he knows arguing with Tom is like trying to nerf a boss with unlimited respawns, it's not happening. Tom agrees to help, but only if they do things his way. And by his way, I mean adding unnecessary layers of complexity to something that should be straightforward. If this was a heist movie, Huck would be the guy saying, let's just grab the loot and bounce, while Tom's the one insisting they rig elaborate traps and leave a calling card for style points. So, the two of them start scheming, and Tom's plans are straight up bonkers. He's pulling ideas from every book he's ever read, and none of it makes any sense. Like, instead of just unlocking Jim's prison and walking him out, Tom wants to dig an underground tunnel, steal random items from the Phelps' house, and send Jim cryptic messages for no reason other than it's more fun. It's like he thinks they're in a Zelda dungeon, and he's determined to solve every puzzle even if there's an easier way to the boss key. Huck, bless his practical little heart, tries to push back a bit, but Tom steamrolls him every time. Huck's like, why do we need a tunnel when the door's right there? And Tom's all, it's for the aesthetic, bro. Meanwhile, you can almost hear Jim somewhere in the background wondering why it's taking them so long to rescue him. The two boys start gathering supplies for Tom's unnecessarily extra plan, and of course, this involves a mix of sneakiness and pure dumb luck. They steal sheets, spoons, and other random items from the Phelps's house to use in their escape room setup. Tom's treating this whole thing like a crafting quest in Minecraft, but instead of building something useful, he's just making chaos for fun. At one point, they even train Jim to carve inscriptions into a wooden plank as part of his prisoner branding. Huck's like, man, this is extra even for Tom. What's wild is that Huck is fully aware of how ridiculous all this is, but he kind of rolls with it because Tom's energy is so strong. Huck's got this vibe of, this is dumb, but okay, let's go with it. You can tell Huck's really growing, though. He's not just the follower he used to be. He genuinely cares about Jim and wants to get him out safely, even if he has to put up with Tom's nonsense to make it happen. By the end of chapter 34, the plan's in motion, and the boys are hyped like they're gearing up for the final boss fight in a co-op game. Huck's more grounded, thinking about Jim's safety, while Tom's just here for the chaos and the clout. It's a wild mix of comedy, tension, and classic Tom Sawyer shenanigans. You know something's going to go off the rails, but for now, it's all systems go. Let's see if they can actually pull this off or if Tom's flair for drama will blow the whole operation. Alright, buckle up, because chapters 35 and 36 of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn are like watching a heist movie where one dude wants to sneak in quietly and the other insists on adding fireworks, a parade, and a TikTok dance challenge for no reason. Huck and Tom are officially in their Rescue Jim era, but let me tell you, Tom Sawyer takes extra to a whole new level. So, Huck's got this solid plan to bust Jim out of the Phelps' shed. He's like, let's keep it simple, grab the key, open the door, and boom, freedom. Quick, clean, efficient. But then Tom shows up like, nah, bro. Where's the pizzazz? Where's the drama? This needs to be legendary. Huck's just sitting there, staring at him like he's trying to explain lag in Fortnite to a boomer. But Tom? He's dead serious. He's been reading way too many adventure books, and now he's treating Jim's rescue like it's a full-blown episode of Money Heist. Tom starts rattling off all these wild ideas about how they should go about freeing Jim. First, he says they need to dig a tunnel. Yes, a tunnel. Huck's like, why? The door is literally right there. But Tom's got this go big or go home energy, so he insists. He's like, what kind of rescue doesn't have a tunnel? That's amateur hour. Then he says they need to leave notes, like mysterious warning notes, for the Phelpses to find, just to mess with them. Huck's over here thinking, this dude really just turned a rescue mission into a Scooby-Doo mystery. And it doesn't stop there. Tom decides that Jim needs to carve his prisoner story on a rock to leave behind a legacy, because apparently escaping isn't enough, you've got to leave fan merch behind. Huck's all, where are we supposed to find a giant rock in the middle of nowhere? But Tom's like, figure it out, bro. We've got to do it for the culture. At this point, Huck realizes that arguing with Tom is like trying to explain to a toddler why they can't eat glue. So, he just goes along with it, even though every fiber of his being is screaming, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Together, they sneak out at night and start digging that tunnel with spoons. Spoons! Imagine you're trying to escape a shed, and instead of using actual tools, your partner in crime hands you a spoon and says, start digging. Huck is one deep sigh away from just yeeting Tom into the river. Now, digging with spoons obviously takes forever, so they're out there every night, making slow progress and probably questioning their life choices. But Huck, being Huck, tries to make the best of it. He keeps up with Tom's ridiculous demands because, deep down, he knows Jim's counting on them. Meanwhile, Tom is having the time of his life, treating the whole thing like he's the main character in some epic movie. Things get even weirder when Tom decides they need to sneak stuff into the shed to help Jim play the part of a prisoner. He's like, we should give him a rope ladder baked into a pie. Huck's like, what does that even mean? But Tom's already crafting this over-the-top plan to smuggle a ladder inside a pie, because clearly, this is the logical next step. They also start sneaking in random things like a tin plate for Jim to write on and a bunch of useless junk, because Tom thinks it's important for Jim to have a proper prison experience. Oh, and get this, Tom also insists on putting spiders and rats in the shed. He's like, prisoners are supposed to have creepy animals in their cells. Huck draws the line at this point. He's like, bro, Jim's trying to survive, not start a nature documentary. But Tom just waves him off, fully committed to his Game of Thrones level theatrics. By the end of chapter 36, Huck's patience is thinner than a cheap pair of earbuds. He's exhausted, confused, and maybe just a little impressed by Tom's creativity, even if it's completely unhinged. Meanwhile, Tom's living his best life, convinced this will be the most legendary rescue in the history of rescues. Jim? He's just sitting in the shed, probably wondering why these two kids are taking so long to get him out. So, yeah, these chapters are peak chaos. Tom turns a straightforward mission into a three-ring circus, Huck tries to keep things from spiraling out of control, and Jim is the ultimate MVP for putting up with all of it. It's ridiculous, hilarious, and a little heartwarming because despite all the nonsense, Huck's determination to free Jim shines through. Classic Huck and Tom energy, am I right? Alright, let's get into chapters 37 and 38 of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, aka the point where Tom Sawyer's rescue mission goes from slightly over the top to full-blown chaos. It's like Tom thinks they're starring in their own action-packed Netflix series, and Huck's just along for the ride, trying not to cringe too hard. So, remember how Tom decided a simple escape plan for Jim wasn't dramatic enough? Well, now they're knee-deep in executing his extra-as-heck strategy, and it's getting weirder by the second. Tom and Huck are sneaking around the Phelps farm, stealing random stuff like it's an IRL stealth game. They take sheets, a candlestick, a tin plate, pretty much anything they can get their hands on. Of course, they have no chill about it, and their antics are starting to make the Phelps family suspicious. Sally Phelps is like, why are all my spoons and candles disappearing, and everyone's scratching their heads trying to figure out what's going on. At one point, Tom and Huck get too greedy and snatch a few extra spoons. Sally counts the spoons and realizes there's an extra one, so Huck has to put it back. But then she counts again, and now it's missing. This back-and-forth spoon fiasco is pure slapstick comedy, like something out of a bad sitcom. Huck's sweating bullets, thinking, this is so dumb. Why can't we just rescue Jim and be done with it? Meanwhile, Tom's treating this like the ultimate side quest. Now here's where things get real off the rails. Tom decides that Jim's prison needs more drama to feel like a legit escape story. His latest genius idea? Jim has to carve a bunch of stuff on the walls of his shed. But wait, it gets better. Tom insists that Jim write his carvings on a stone, because apparently that's what prisoners in stories do. Jim's all, dude, where am I supposed to get a rock in this tiny shed? And Tom's like, no worries, we'll steal a grindstone. So, Huck and Tom haul this massive grindstone from who knows where, and it's so heavy they can barely lift it. They actually have to get Jim to help them drag it into his shed. That's right, the dude they're supposed to be rescuing is out here helping them set up their own nonsense. Jim's probably thinking, these fools are out of their minds, but sure, let's roll with it. Huck's just mentally facepalming the whole time, but he's so used to Tom's chaos by now that he doesn't even bother arguing. But wait, there's more. Tom's also decided that Jim needs to have a pet in his prison, because apparently every good prisoner has one. At first, Tom wants Jim to tame a rattlesnake. Yeah, you heard that right, a freaking rattlesnake. Huck's like, bro, have you lost your mind? And somehow manages to convince Tom to settle for a harmless critter instead. They end up catching some rats and spiders to put in the shed, because apparently that's less insane. Jim, bless his patient soul, is not thrilled about being roommates with a bunch of creepy crawlies, but he just sighs and rolls with it. He's probably thinking, as long as these two clowns actually get me out of here, I guess I can put up with this nonsense. Oh, and Tom's not done yet. He decides Jim also needs to grow a flower and water it with his tears. Like, dude, what kind of melodramatic anime nonsense is this? Jim's all, man, I don't even have time for this, but Tom's out here treating him like a method actor preparing for an Oscar-worthy performance. It's almost impressive how far Tom will go to make this rescue needlessly complicated. Meanwhile, Huck's just trying to keep things from completely falling apart. He's still super loyal to Jim and genuinely wants to help him escape, but Tom's constant stream of ridiculous ideas is making it nearly impossible. Huck's internal monologue is basically, why do I let Tom drag me into this mess? But at the same time, he's kind of resigned to it. He knows Tom's not going to stop until this rescue is the most dramatic, over-the-top event anyone's ever seen. By the end of these chapters, the boys are still deep in their chaotic prep work, and Jim's shed is starting to look like some kind of escape room meets haunted house setup. It's ridiculous, it's unnecessary, and it's absolutely hilarious. You can tell Huck's just counting down the days until they can finally bust Jim out and leave all this nonsense behind. But knowing Tom, things are only going to get even crazier from here. In short, these chapters are peak Tom Sawyer nonsense, with Huck playing the reluctant sidekick and Jim somehow managing to stay chill through it all. It's messy, it's chaotic, and it's 100% classic Mark Twain humor. If nothing else, you've got to respect Tom's commitment to the bit, even if it's the most ridiculous bit ever. Alright, let's dive into chapters 39 and 40 of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Picture this, we're deep into Tom Sawyer's Rescue Jim project, which at this point is less of a mission and more of a chaotic performance art piece. If this were a video game, Tom would be the player spamming side quests, while Huck is just trying to finish the main storyline. So, Tom is still in full extra mode. He decides they need to up the drama even more, because apparently digging a tunnel with spoons, smuggling random junk into the shed, and forcing Jim to carve stuff on a tin plate wasn't enough. This time, Tom insists they send more warning letters to the Phelps family to make things spicy. Huck's like, dude, why are you creating problems for us? Just chill. But you already know Tom isn't about to chill. The letters are basically Tom's way of trolling the Phelpses. He writes them in full-on mystery villain mode, warning the family that something big and scary is about to happen. One of the letters even says that a gang of robbers is coming to steal Jim. Tom probably thought he was being super clever, but really, it's like giving yourself a 5-star wanted level in GTA before you've even started the mission. Naturally, the Phelpses lose their minds over these letters. They're all, oh no, we're about to get raided, and call in a bunch of locals for backup. These guys show up armed to the teeth, ready to throw hands with imaginary bandits. Meanwhile, Huck is internally screaming, why are we like this? He knows Tom's nonsense has officially turned their stealth mission into a circus, but it's too late to back out now. Finally, the big night arrives, the moment they've been building up to. It's rescue time, baby. Huck and Tom sneak out and head to the shed where Jim's locked up. They've already tunneled underneath, so they just need to break him out and make a run for it. But of course, this is Tom Sawyer we're talking about, so even the escape has to be unnecessarily chaotic. First, they sneak Jim out of the shed, which actually goes pretty smoothly at first. Huck's thinking, wow, maybe this will work after all. But then, just as they're about to make their getaway, Tom sets off the weirdest part of his plan yet. Remember how he wanted to make everything more dramatic? Well, apparently, that involved planting a warning note on a watermelon. Yes, a watermelon. Why? Nobody knows. Tom is just built different. Things start going sideways when the Phelpses and their army of local dudes figure out something's up. They're not playing around either, they're ready to go full Red Dead Redemption on whoever's trying to steal Jim. Suddenly, the whole farm erupts into chaos. Guns are fired, people are yelling, and Huck, Tom, and Jim are sprinting like they're being chased by a boss fight they weren't ready for. Huck's thinking, this wasn't in the script, while Tom is probably having the time of his life because this is exactly the kind of drama he wanted. During the escape, Tom does something so Tom it hurts, he gets himself shot in the leg. Huck is immediately like, oh great, now we've got to deal with that too. But instead of freaking out, Tom's just lying there, all proud of himself, like, this makes the story so much cooler. Huck and Jim? Not impressed. They've got bigger problems, like the angry mob still chasing them. Despite the absolute mess, Jim proves once again why he's the MVP of this whole story. Instead of running for freedom when he gets the chance, he insists on staying behind to help Tom. Even though this delay could cost him everything, Jim's like, nah, I'm not leaving my friends behind. Huck's watching this go down and thinking, wow, Jim's a better human than most people I know. Eventually, they manage to carry Tom back to safety. Huck's already brainstorming how to explain this whole disaster to whoever's still alive tomorrow morning, but Tom? Oh, Tom's just vibing. Even with a bullet wound, he's grinning ear to ear, like, that was awesome. Let's do it again sometime. Huck can't even with this guy at this point. So, to recap, these chapters are a hot mess. Tom turns a simple escape into a full-blown soap opera, Huck's trying not to lose his mind, and Jim proves he's the real hero of this chaotic trio. It's absurd, hilarious, and honestly kind of touching, because even with all the nonsense, these three stick together. Classic Huck and Tom vibes, right? Alright, so the final chapters of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn are basically the grand finale, where everything gets messy, chaotic, and then wrapped up in a way that's somehow both satisfying and completely wild. Let's dive into this whirlwind ending and break it down. First off, Huck's back at the Phelps farm, trying to play it cool while Tom is off being extra, as usual. Remember, Tom got shot during their unnecessarily over-the-top jailbreak plan for Jim. Like, seriously, all the drama they stirred up just to bust Jim out, and it ends with Tom catching a bullet? You can't make this stuff up. Huck's freaking out, thinking, great, how do I explain this mess without everything going up in flames? Huck runs into Silas Phelps, who's out here being the concerned family man, searching for Tom, though he doesn't know it's Tom, just some stranger who got hurt. Huck pulls out his usual improv skills and spins a story so smooth it could have come straight from a Dungeons and Dragons bard. He tells Silas that Tom, still pretending to be Sid, got ambushed by some random gang of thieves. Silas is like, oh no, let's find him, and Huck's just thinking, please let this dude buy it so I don't get roasted. Meanwhile, Tom's injury turns into a whole production. They bring him back to the house, where Sally Phelps, who's basically the OG overwarrior, is fussing over him like he's a precious NPC on 1 HP. Tom's milking it for all it's worth, probably thinking, I'm the hero of this story, obviously. Huck, on the other hand, is low-key losing his mind because they're still sitting on the fact that they just broke Jim out of captivity and someone's bound to notice sooner or later. Here's where things go full soap opera. While Tom's comped out, Jim gets caught again. Yep, all that effort, all that sneaking around, all those unnecessarily dramatic flourishes, and Jim's back in chains like nothing ever happened. You can almost hear Huck internally yelling, are you kidding me right now? But then Tom wakes up and drops a bombshell, Jim's already free. Like, dude, what? Turns out, Tom knew the whole time that Jim was legally a free man because his owner, spoiler, Miss Watson, had freed him in her will before she died. Tom didn't say anything because, get this, he thought it'd be fun to stage an elaborate jailbreak. Fun. Huck's staring at him like, did this man really almost die for some cosplay escape attempt? At this point, Jim is the MVP of chill. Even after all the chaos, all the risks, and all the nonsense Tom put him through, Jim doesn't even get mad. He's just like, well, glad to know I'm free now, I guess. Huck, meanwhile, is having a bit of an existential crisis. He's been through so much with Jim and has grown so much as a person, only for Tom to pull this surprise twist nonsense. It's like reaching the final level of a game, only to find out you didn't need to do half the quests because the main boss already quit. The last chapter ties everything up with that classic Mark Twain humor that makes you laugh and roll your eyes at the same time. Tom, ever the drama king, pays Jim $40 as a thank you for being such a good sport about the whole jailbreak disaster. Jim's reaction? He's just happy he finally got some coin out of this nonsense. Plus, he gets to flex on everyone by pointing out that his fortune-telling, remember that weird hairball thing, was right, he really did end up rich. As for Huck, he's not about that settled life. After finding out his abusive dad is dead, cue a mix of relief and sadness, Huck realizes there's nothing keeping him tied down anymore. He knows Sally Phelps wants to civilize him, but Huck's not about that 9-to-5 life. He's like, nah, I'm good, and decides to dip out west for the next adventure. You can almost picture him walking into the sunset like the end of a cowboy movie, ready to start fresh. So, what's the takeaway? Huck's journey isn't just about running from trouble or helping Jim, it's about figuring out who he is and what he stands for. He breaks away from society's toxic ideas about race and morality, choosing loyalty and friendship over everything else. Sure, the ending's messy, and Tom's antics are frustrating, but Huck's growth is what makes it all worth it. In the end, the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn goes out with a bang, reminding us that life's chaotic, people are ridiculous, and sometimes you just have to sail your own raft down the river and figure it out as you go. Huck's not perfect, but he's real, and that's why we love him.